Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. This is the November 20th meeting of the Revere City Council Zoning Subcommittee. We have one matter before us this evening. It is an application for a special permit pursuant to Section 17.6.040 of the revised ordinances of the City of Revere. An application of Boston Wellness Association, Inc., 220 Broadway, Linfield Suite 304, seeking permission from the City of Revere City Council to operate a medical treatment center within the TED District at 44 Railroad Street in Revere, Massachusetts. Typically, we seek to hear from the applicant first and then expect commentary or anticipate any commentary to be afterwards. When we were appraised of this at a public hearing on Monday, we advised the applicant to bring in several people who would be able to answer some, what I expect to be extensive questioning from the City Council. This evening we have with us Councilor Rigo, Councilor Correggio, Councilor Hass, and Councilor Giannino, who all comprise the zoning subcommittee. Councilor Zambuto, Council President Novoselsky, Councilor Powers, Councilor Penta, and Councilor Patcher all are here as well. Councilor Giannino could not be here tonight, and I want to make note of that. She unfortunately was working, and I do apologize that we had to put this meeting on. It has to do with the necessity of advancing this application, from what I understand at least. But Councilor Giannino has asked me to express some of her concerns, and I expect to be doing that during the course of this meeting. So if the proponent would, the applicant representative would step to the podium as he already has, and please give your name and address and give us please some information about this application.
Mr. Chairman, my name is Attorney Lawrence Simeone, 300 Broadway, Revere, Massachusetts. I represent tonight Boston Wellness Association, and as you noted, a nonprofit organization from Linfield, Massachusetts. Before you and the honorable body on Monday, we sought application for special permit in accordance with the Revere Revised Ordinance 17.16.040. And essentially, we pointed out that the ordinance as approved by the Honorable Council in October of 2013, allowing the municipal marijuana treatment centers by special permit have a limitation of one area, only in the TED district, and two, a 400-foot district regulation, i.e. that no medical marijuana treatment center be closer than 400 feet from any residential use, schools, buildings and structures, religious organizations and public schools, as well as ACEC districts. We spoke briefly about where this location that we've identified is. It is at 44 Railroad Street. It is approximately 2.3 acres. The lot is identified on the plan below, on the site plan, as Lot A. It's 102,000 square feet. It has 100 foot of frontage on Railroad Street and is in the TED district as required by the ordinance. The existing facility, and I will go over the plans with my architect, who was unfortunately, we couldn't have enough time to get it done at the committee, but Mr. Jim Dean from Dean Associates will go through it. And essentially, Building A is 11,700 square feet. Building B is 21,900 square feet, giving a total existing building about 33,600 square feet. By construction of a mezzanine on the second floor of the larger building that's closer to me here, we'll go to 39,000 square feet. The structure is a non-conforming structure, but most, if all, of the renovations are interior renovations, so no special permit is triggered by alteration of the non-conforming structure. As I spoke to you briefly at the council, in the council chambers, and I'll have Mr. Dean elaborate, it is estimated that Boston Wellness Association will invest in this building and in this area approximately $4 million. Thank you. All right. So, am I on now, Ash? Am I good? All right, I'm good. Yeah, I'm not going to start all over again. But anyway, the investment of $4 million will include roof renovations, siding renovations, and significant renovations to the interior of these extremely deplorable buildings. Anybody who's been in this area would be horrified at the condition of those buildings. The fact that BWA is now going to invest that kind of money and spend significant funds in purchasing it will be a boost to the economy of the city of Revere, and most of us won't even know it because it's a very, very difficult site to find. Here you have not only new handicap ramps and new exterior, we'll also develop a retail space of 2,500 square feet, an office space of 2,000 square feet, and warehouse space, as I said, about 39,700 square feet. There'll be hours of operation 24/7. There'll be somebody there on premises, whether it be security, whether it be cultivation people, or whatever, 7 days a week. However, the retail store, I am told, will be about 8 a.m. to 7 p.m. The gates that you see below that I talked about before, we can discuss those in our security presentation. Those gates will control the flow of the public and people working for the facility and working for the facility in the back part of the location. It is anticipated that 25 to 60 new jobs will be presented in this particular program. As far as the act itself, I have several people to make presentation to you this evening. I have Kathleen Donovan, who is a member of the BWA board. Ms. Donovan will talk about registration issues, especially the certification of physicians, and what length the department has gone through, the Department of Public Health has gone through to make sure that these physicians have a variety of different levels of expertise and standards. We'll also be talking, you'll also hear from Guy Galotis on dispensary security, and you'll be able to ask Guy those issues that I'm sure that you'd like the public to hear on what my client intends to do to protect both people in the facility and the people outside the facility. You'll also hear from Adam Berman and Rick Berman. They're consultants in the area of cultivation, management of such facilities as a medical marijuana treatment center, and they will bring their expertise and talents to make a presentation of what the BWA is going to do, and also what questions you might have in that process. And finally, I'm going to ask the executive, the president of the company, to say a few words about what his long-term goals are, if successful in his venture to bring people in our community this very, very important quality-saving medicine for those who really live in a day-to-day pain and isolation in some cases. So I'll start off with Mr. Dean, if you could accompany me.
Kindly state your name and your address, please.
My name is Jim Dean. I am the principal of Dean Associates Architects out of Wakefield. My home address is 12 Reserve Street in Malden, Massachusetts. Sorry. So as Larry was saying, our site plan development starts with security. We have a gate at the beginning of the property that will secure the property when it's not open to the public. Sorry. This happens right here at the front of the driveway coming in. A customer, a member of the public would approach up this road, past this gate, and then public would only be allowed to park here in this front part of the property. We have another rolling security gate that would separate the back piece of the property. All parking in the back here would be for employees only. So any kind of truck delivery, access or employee access would come back here behind the gate. We're proposing 22 spaces on this side and 2 more on the other, with the required handicap spaces for the public access up here in the front. And we're proposing that our main public entrance would be here on this side, accompanied by a new handicap accessible ramp and a small retail area there. So this is our initial thought for building A. You see we're going to put in the handicap accessible ramp, and then the public access would just be in this section of the building, just at the front of the property here. The idea was that we would come in here to a secure waiting area. You would wait in the waiting area, present your credentials to somebody at a secure window. If you're approved to move through into a retail area, you can do so. If not, if you need somebody to come out and meet you, we'd have a small private counseling area there for somebody to come down, sit down with you and talk to you about your needs at that point. If your credentials are checked, you'd go in through a secure airlock into the retail area and do your business. We're also having, adjacent to this space, about 2,500 square feet of office area. This is for support staff and also for a small kitchen for the MIPS production. And then the rest of our building becomes the manufacturing area. So all of this building here is manufacturing, and then building 2 in the future, building B in the future, would be manufacturing as well. Currently, this whole building is about 20,000 square feet on one floor. We're proposing that we can add a mezzanine or a second floor in as an infill within the building. We've got about 20 foot high ceilings, so that we could add a mezzanine and expand our manufacturing area that way. And we've based our parking calculations per the zoning ordinance on the worst case scenario or the most aggressive scenario, and have come up with a need for parking of approximately 57 spaces. We're showing about 88 here, so we've got plenty of room for expansion, plenty of parking on site. The storefront here is shown. This is potential improvements to the front of the building. I anticipate that those will probably develop as we move forward, but we'll certainly have, an awning and some signage and some storefront to try to bring this building back to life. As Larry had mentioned, it's very run down, in need of some spit shine for sure, and we'll do that as part of this project.
Thank you very much. I'd like to now introduce Kathleen Donovan, a member of the Boston Wellness Association Board. Ms. Donovan?
Good evening, and thank you very much for allowing me to speak. My name is Kathleen Donovan. I live at 30 Hartford Road in Arlington, Massachusetts, and I'm very familiar with Revere. I educated many of your relatives' sons and daughters when I was president of Pope John XXIII High School. It's my pleasure to explain why I went on the board and what we intend to do there, and most of it is state law. For example, if you speak of the doctors that will write these recommendations for patients to come here, they have to pass a very rigorous testing over and above what they had to do to get their medical licenses. And they are required to be registered with the Controlled Substance Bureau. They are required to take additional education and do it on an annual basis before they are allowed to do it. When they decide that it is important for a person with a debilitating disease to receive medical marijuana, they are required to do special evaluation on the patient. They are required to evaluate all past instances of illness and what their medical record appears to be. Then they are not allowed to prescribe for anyone under the age of 18 unless there are multiple doctors. You need to have more than one doctor evaluate the patient and evaluate their records. They are also required to be checked and registered, and if at any point in time their license is held up or suspended for one reason or another, in their whole past history, they will not be involved with putting forward a recommendation for a patient. The agents that work within the facility also have to be registered. If they have anything to do, whether they're a board member, whether they work in the facility, or whether they come to the facility to test your product. If they are delivering a product to either a caretaker or to a patient who is too handicapped and is unable to come and get the prescription themselves, we will be providing a delivery service that would bring it to the people, and there are strict regulations covering that also. Everyone who works within the facility or has anything to do with setting up the rules must be Corey checked. And I was a teacher for a lot of years, and we Corey checked every 3 years. But here they will be Corey checked every year. And as far as the education goes, we are required to have educational material available for the patients who come in. We are required to train everyone that works with us a minimum of 8 hours on a continual basis with every strain that would be used, how it would react with it within a person when they are receiving the medical marijuana. And one of the positive things that many are not aware of is that when you use medical marijuana, it does not affect your liver, as many of the medications that people take has that effect. But I doubt that there's anyone here that hasn't been touched in your family with some of these debilitating illnesses. And I'm sure this will make a difference for many people. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Downing. I'm now going to introduce to the podium the former sheriff of Worcester County, Guy W. Galotis. He will talk about dispensary security in accordance with the regulations, as well as what he sees is going to happen at 44 Railroad Street.
Thank you, Councilor. Mr. Chairman, through you to members of the committee and esteemed councilors, my name is Guy Galotis. I reside at 39 Old Cart Road, Auburn, Massachusetts. I come before the committee tonight in a double capacity. One is the Chief Security Officer for Boston Wellness Association, but also as a public safety consultant for the project as well. I can tell you, Mr. Chairman, when I was contacted by President Philbin very early on in the process, his emphasis to me from the get-go was the safety and the security of not only the neighborhood, but of the community and the project at hand. Since then, I can tell you that he has matched those words with actions. He has not only contracted with me, but he's worked with other outside public safety consultants, one of which is Major Eric Brogna from the Fort Lauderdale Police Department. He has a tremendous career and reputation in drug enforcement. He started on the streets of Miami and Fort Lauderdale, South County, Florida, working on the narcotics union. He was promoted to the major narcotics unit. He's also done extensive work with the Drug Enforcement Agency. In addition to that, Boston Wellness has taken it a step further, and they've also collaborated and contracted with Land Telecommunications from Norwood, Massachusetts. Many of the councils, especially those that serve in the Public Safety Committee, might be familiar with Lantel Communications. Lantel Communications has worked here in the city of Revere with your police department. They've done all the camera work in Cambridge, in Brighton. I can also tell you, as a former member of the House of Representatives and chairman of the Public Safety Committee, they did all the camera work at the State House on Beacon Hill. They've done the camera work for the MBTA. They've done the camera work for the Department of Corrections, all of their technology, including numerous and many sheriff's departments throughout the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. They, too, have a very good security plan. Mr. Chairman, I can tell you really security, from my background, begins with the location. It begins with the premise itself. And as our Councilor Larry has mentioned, 44 Railroad Street, we think, is a very secure location. There is a natural perimeter, what we call a natural security perimeter, on 3 different sides of the proposed location, to the north, to the west, to the east. To the west is a live commuter, MBTA commuter bed. To the east is a dead commuter bed. And to the north is the Revere Parkway overpass, which also acts as a barrier. In addition to those 3 natural perimeter securities, I can tell you that the building itself is surrounded by a 10-foot chain-linked fence with razor barbed wire on the top. I can also tell you that beyond that, there's one access point for entry, which is very important, and also according to the CMR rules, 725, Section 110, as our architect mentioned, there'll be 2 different gateways. There'll be one at 250 feet out from the premise and another at 200 feet out to make sure that there's only one access point, one entry, one exit to control the flow and any people that might be coming on with motor vehicle or by foot. The parking lot, Mr. Chairman, will be illuminated at night. Lighting is very important. It's something that doesn't exist at the current location. But not only that, there will be a 360-degree, what's called CCTV, closed-circuit surveillance camera at all angles of the parking lot, the building, to again give a 360-degree view, which could be recorded for up to a month's period of time. When we deal with the interior, Mr. Chairman, it is still continues to be a high-security designated location. There's one door for general access on the ground floor with a man trap as you walk in. There are no windows on the first floor, which is, I think, pleasing for the eye for anybody that might be driving by, but more importantly, for security reasons, being concerned with breaking and entering, any type of loitering, any type of intrusion. We feel as if that's very important. Again, with regulation CMR 775-110, the interior of the building in every single room will have closed-circuit security cameras from the point of entry to every single room. In addition to that, Mr. Chairman, there will be what's called an IDS, which is an intrusion detection system. And this, Mr. Chairman, could be for motion detection. It could also be for glass breaking detection. There would be scramble pads, access pads, and of course a panic button if needed in the event of some kind of crisis. In addition, there'll be a standalone generator, so if power was to go down, there'll be backup power to all the cameras, and there'll be a backup alarm system as well, which could be powered. Boston Wellness is really taken into account, I think, of any variable that could happen. Not to mention, many of the city councils know that the proposed site's only about a half a mile from the Revere Police Department. We have also talked to them, and we can, at their option, have any of this video equipment sent right to the police station as well. If they'd like an open line to be able to view 24 hours, that absolutely is possible. Again, we'll leave it at the discretion of your esteemed police chief and security at the police department. I'll be available afterwards for any questions, and I look forward to answering them from the committee. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
As I said, Mr. Chairman, the facility will be run 24/7. Some of the activities at that facility will include the operational aspect as well as what result we have from that operational aspect, the impacts to this community. This evening, we've had Adam Berman and Rick Berman. I'm going to introduce Adam first, and he will discuss a variety of different things in the medical marijuana industry, for which he and his father, Rick Berman, have many years of experience in California and in other locations. Adam?
Thank you. Adam Bierman, 3221 Carter Avenue, Marina Del Rey, California, 90292. Thanks, everybody, for letting me speak tonight, and thanks for bringing me 28-degree weather. I appreciate it. I'm the president of the MedMen. The MedMen was the first marijuana consulting firm in the United States, at least that we know of. Our background is in the business of medical marijuana. As many of you probably are aware, the business of medical marijuana started in our state of California. I think that our state left a lot to be desired, but we were the first, and we had nothing to learn from except our own mistakes. But that being said, we still have the largest marketplace for businesses selling marijuana, growing marijuana, and it's been a great breeding ground for a lot of the people now that are at the forefront of the industry. We were contacted by Boston Wellness to help in the particular facets specific to this industry. I think that they've done an excellent job of putting a team together to address the facets that would come in any business: security, staffing, the general business elements, if you will. But when it comes to the elements specific that only can be gained through doing it, I think that it shows a lot that they reached out all the way to us in California and asked us to come in and participate. Over the last 6 years, our business has grown, and as it's grown, we've learned. We've learned what the impact on a community really is when you open up a marijuana dispensary. We've learned what the impact on a community really is when you start a marijuana grow. We've learned what the economic impact is in regards to jobs when you start one of these businesses. And in doing that, I think that that insight is allowing those people that do reach out and contact us to skip the learning curve. One of the things that we see, and as you guys are probably all aware, this is happening in more and more states all the time. Right now, merit-based applications are being pursued in your state, Nevada, and Illinois. And in each of these states, the goal obviously is to learn from the states before them. And the goal, I think, with Boston Wellness and to your advantage here in the city of Revere is for them to skip the learning curve that I had to go through. As of today, our best guess is we've actually started and participated in over 100 marijuana businesses across the country. And I'll tell you right now that I vividly remember the first one, and it definitely wasn't as efficient as the last one. So what they have brought us on to do is to help them skip that learning curve, help the city of Revere not have to go through the learning curve, and for us to be able to produce the highest quality pharmaceutical grade cannabis possible, and then for us to distribute that cannabis to those patients desperately in need of it, to educate them in the process. What I've done today is I've brought a couple of pictures, and I don't know the best way to distribute these. These are just a couple of examples, and if you guys, if the council requests more photos, we can definitely furnish those. But these are a couple examples of medical marijuana grow facilities as well as medical marijuana retail facilities. I think the one thing that you'll notice is that the Bob Marley poster type of retail facility that you might have in the back of your head is not what we do, and it's not what Boston Wellness intends to do. I think you'll find that these reflect a pharmacy by nature in the way that they look. The other thing that I'll be open to discussing later, if you so choose, is the actual impact that we've seen in these communities. And being in California, we've actually been at the front of the research that has gone on in this respect. Many of you were furnished different reports by council, is my understanding, that were conducted over the last 5 years in our state. And I think, not surprisingly, what has been found overwhelmingly is that a medical marijuana establishment, if run correctly, helps the community. It makes it more secure, especially in a dilapidated area, in a dilapidated building like this. We're going to improve security as opposed to make it more of a security risk. So we do have all those studies, and I'm willing to address them with council if council chooses after this. Thank you for your time.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, Adam was referring to a handout that I provided each council that talk about the criminal statistics, the impact of crime, and he'll be more than willing to continue that discussion with you at the end of our presentation. I'd now like to introduce Rick Berman, talk about cultivation and processing, or I think as he tells me, from seed to sale.
Thank you for the opportunity to speak. I don't speak as well as my son, so I apologize up front. I just want to quickly cover two things. One is we grow marijuana in a very scientifically advanced manner. We are agricultural consultants is what we do on that end. We do so because we are growing medicinal marijuana and we are optimizing the medicinal value of each of those plants. There have been since 2010 186 clinical trials using marijuana in the United States alone. As I'm sure all of you are aware, marijuana has been used for, best we can tell, centuries. And the pharmaceutical companies are extremely interested in finding what other value marijuana has. Cancer, Alzheimer's. We are growing marijuana for those clinical trials. We will be doing that in Massachusetts with Boston Wellness to provide the hospitals in Massachusetts that will be conducting their own clinical trials to further the research of the medicinal value of marijuana. So my point is, we're serious about the best product possible. The second thing I wanted to address quickly is, if you have any concern about the security of the product itself, Guy obviously did a great job talking about how the facility will be secure, but the product itself, the way we grow marijuana is each plant is tagged and is entered into a database. We follow, as Larry said, the product from seed all the way to disposition. We know how many grams each plant is supposed to produce. So at the end of the cycle, if something is missing, we can identify where it went astray. As a result of that, there won't be anybody taking product, final marijuana, medicinal marijuana, out of the facility and selling it on the street. They won't have access to it. We treat this like every other business, retail business, that has inventory. So it's we grow the product, the medicinal marijuana, to our optimum level, and we protect that product so it is only channeled through the legal authorities and the laws that the state of Massachusetts has enacted.
While you're up there, we were also talking about that you barcoded, not just for law enforcement reasons or security, for cultivation purposes. We want to,
Yeah, the mechanism for us keeping track of each plant is we do create a barcode for that plant, and it goes into our software so that we can follow it throughout the entire process. We do it not only for security purposes to make sure that that marijuana doesn't disappear and go into the street, but it's also our way to continually improve the way we grow each one of those plants.
thank you very much. The Site Plan Review Committee issued their conditions, and I don't know how many members actually have those conditions, but I will go through them briefly. Mr. Stringy and members of the committee established that the site plan shall provide BWA will provide a site locus map establishing the minimum setback radius of 400 feet from the principal entrance of the treatment center. Within this 400-foot radius, there should be no residential uses, parks, playgrounds, including areas designated as areas of environmental critical concern, ACEC, as well as schools, buildings, structures used for religious purposes in public schools. The 400-foot radius shall be measured from the principal entrance of the facility to the closest property line of the above reference uses. The Site Plan Review Committee also established that the parking lot should be cleared of all the trucks and trailers and shall be striped for the 88 parking spaces, including 4 designated handicap parking spaces as identified by Jim Dean in his presentation. The site shall also include pavement markings for the designated driveway entrance for two-way traffic, including pavement marking arrows showing traffic circulation within the parking lot in accordance with the site plan that you have seen earlier in our presentation done by Jay Jaros. The entrance drive shall also include signage designating an entrance and exit to the site. A standing accessory sign shall be installed in a landscape island at the entrance of the drive and shall be set back at least 10 feet from the right-of-way. The accessory sign shall be a low-profile sign to be approved by the Site Plan Review Committee in accordance with the City of Revere sign ordinance dimensional controls. The fencing established shall be installed around the perimeter of the site and shall be a minimum of 10 feet. 2 security gates shall be installed at the site. The first gate shall be an entrance gate for customer parking lot, and the second gate shall be installed at the entrance to employee parking lot. All security gates shall be a minimum of 10 feet. The site shall be appropriately illuminated, including all entrances to the building, parking lot, entrance drives. Illumination shall be provided by attached floodlights to the building and freestanding light poles to provide in the final site plan. Both interior and exterior security cameras shall be installed at the site in accordance with the Department of Public Health and Revere Police Department requirements. And the final site plan shall be reviewed and approved by the Fire Department for fire suppression and system requirements. Having completed this presentation, I'm now going to bring to the podium President of Boston Wellness, Matthew Philbin.
Matt, excuse me one second. After you're done with your presentation, I'm going to ask you to remain at the podium because I would assume that you're probably the best person to direct questions to. I'm also, given the fact that we have another public hearing at 7 o'clock, we may run into that. But I'm going to ask the subcommittee members and the other city councilors to limit their discussion at this point to questions, because I think there's a lot of questions. If we could limit that and hold commentary until we actually take a vote on this, I think that would be the appropriate thing to do. I mean, a vote on it on Monday. I am I am reticent to report this out in any way, shape, or form with any recommendation at this point, because given the fact that we've kind of compressed this a little bit, so you folks could move forward with your application, assuming we offer the permit. It seems to me that we should save commentary and individual commentary for Monday night. If that's good for the subcommittee, I think it makes more sense. Otherwise, we'll be talking about this instead of thinking about it, which is, I think, what we ought to do. And what we need to do is get the answers tonight more than make comment on it. So please go forward with your presentation, and I'll let you direct the question. When we direct the questions, I'll let you decide who can answer them best.
That's great with me, because my biggest fear is public speaking, so thank you very much, Chair. Honorable members of the board, I thank you for your time. My name is Matt Philbin. I live at 39 Castle Road, Nahant, Massachusetts. Some of you know me, some of you don't. My roots in Revere go back a long ways. My mother grew up on Cheever Street, just off of Broadway. Her father was Tannen the florist, and I'm sure some of the board had been in and out of there over the years. So my love for Revere goes a long way back. That being said, anything I do in the city of Revere comes with great pride. This endeavor, which we're trying to do for the patients of this community, is going to be done professionally, safely, and securely. They say surround yourself with good generals. I feel as though we've done that. I feel as though we have a quality team, and we have a great opportunity for the citizens of Revere, the citizens of Suffolk County, and the patients of Suffolk County. That being said, my concerns are the same concerns as Revere Cares and other groups in the community. We run a transparent operation in any of my endeavors. And this one, wholeheartedly, I look forward to working with the heads of all the departments, all the counselors, the current administration, any future administration, and any community groups or activists, because this is something that we're taking very seriously and needs to be taken seriously. And our concerns are their concerns. So we are very transparent. We're open to them at all times for any issues. As you guys see, the board we put together has run the gamut of all the departments and all the concerns that I think that not only the city but the state has. And I have to hand it to the state of Massachusetts. They acted at the right time with the models of all the other states, and they put together a very, very stringent credentials for anybody to do this operation. Any questions? I'll keep it short. So,
thank you, Matt. You mentioned Revere Cares, and there are a couple of individuals and groups that are not, one group that's not here, and then two individuals, one of which is Councilor Janino, who asked me to suggest to you whether or not there would be, well, first of all, it's a general security question. Is there going to be specific on-site security personnel 24/7?
yes, there is.
All right, and she mentioned something about the feasibility of a police deal on site. Perhaps that wouldn't be necessary if you were to have your own designated security on site.
Correct, but we are open and have been in touch with Officer Guido, and he's talked to us about that, and we would be open to that.
Great. The next question actually comes from Katie Sherman. I'm sure you've probably seen the communication from Revere Cares. And she made a couple of salient points. I think that, oh, by the way, I should say, anybody who's interested in what the state says about the regulations regarding medical marijuana really ought to check the what we call the CMRs, the Code of Municipal Massachusetts Regulations. And the citation, this is 105 CMR 725, Larry, is that correct? That's correct. And you can probably check that out online. I know the CMRs are available. Anybody who's really concerned about it, it's very, very extensive. I've reviewed it myself, and I'm not going to go into the particulars, but anybody who's concerned about it, it's really an extensive piece of legislation and regulation. But she was concerned about advertising and marketing, in that there not be any marketing devices such as signs and advertising, particularly things that might appeal to children at the site. Could you address that?
Absolutely. The state mandates the marketing, and thus being almost next to none. Okay, and we definitely, having children of my own, newborn, and being a proponent of of legal marijuana, we don't want that. We don't want advertising. We are not going to advertise. There is no signage. The signage is minimal, and all it can say is Boston Wellness. Has no references to marijuana or marijuana products. It's not going to be in the newspapers. It's not going to be in magazines. It's just the way, it's the state mandated, the rules on advertising.
Thank you. I'm going to turn it over to the subcommittee, starting with Councilor Arrigo.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have a couple of questions, and a couple of questions were actually answered through the presentations. But for security personnel, how many folks are you going to have on duty? I know it's a 24-hour operation, so I didn't know if you would have. Is it one person? Are we talking, 2, 3 people?
Per shift, is that? It's
per shift.
Anywhere between 1 to 2 people,
1 to 2.
depending upon time of day.
Okay. And will one be in the store?
Yes.
Okay. All right. My other question is around what another community that is looking at this is Quincy, the city of Quincy, and they're setting up a structure to have a kind of a host agreement, and I thought that was a pretty good idea. They're talking about getting some increased personnel for their police drug unit, video cameras, which it sounds like we will be able to hook into their feed, but maybe additional cameras. They're talking about shuttle service. So a shuttle service that would go to and from public transportation, maybe keep people from. I think some of the issue with public safety is to keep people from getting maybe jumped outside. And then educational and drug awareness programs. I just wanted to kind of throw the question out there of, a host agreement. Is there any, obviously you guys want to be a good partner. You've been a good partner as a business owner in the city. Has there been any conversation with the city about potentially doing something like a host agreement?
Sure. Boston Wellness is open to that. We have discussed certain things in our program, which we're going to interact educational-wise, and on the web-based system. All our cameras, inside and out, is a web-based system, and the powers, in charge, the security teams, the local police department, and the state can go on a website and real-time watch any and all the operations inside and out. And the education side of it, Kathleen Dunham would probably be a little bit better at that, but we do have a program to not only educate our patients, but also the community around us.
And one other note, just on the jobs, I know you mentioned 25 to 60 jobs. Will there be any Revere preference for folks who may want a job?
Absolutely. Absolutely. We'd prefer Revere residents, because that's one of our things. We're looking to provide anywhere between 40 to 60 jobs, and Revere residents would get preference.
Excellent. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
We've also been in touch with the Health Department, Director Catanazzo, and we've talked to him extensively about his concerns and what they're going to also, their inspectionals and whatever else they want to do down there. Like we said, we're truly transparent.
I should mention that the CMRs do make a provision for local regulation, significant local regulation, including a fee, local fee. So that's probably something we're going to have to deal with the Board of Health at some point, and maybe condition this upon the negotiation of the Board of Health for these things, because of the lack of time really for us to get involved in that. But I think the Board of Health is probably the best source for that information.
And just as a kind of point of clarity, what are the deadlines that you're facing? I know there was a deadline for a letter of non-opposition from the city. Are there any other deadlines, hard deadlines that are coming up for?
Well, before I address the deadline issue, I'll let Matt field that one. We've met with Nick Catanazzo, Inspection and Service Director, and the Board of Health. He is right on top of it. He's indicated he's seen a proposed draft of the Brookline regulations. We talked about fees and education with him. So that would be the course we would like to pursue in a formal way, whether it be whatever you want to call it, host agreement, linkage fee, or whatever. It would be through the Board of Health because they have the legislative authority already in the regulations, and it's within their venue working with the police department. As far as the question, Matthew?
Councilor Rigo, regarding the timeline, Thursday, tomorrow, is the deadline for any letter from the council on support. So that would be tomorrow.
That is a letter of no opposition?
No opposition.
I see. Councilor Correggio.
Thank you, Chairman Reardon. Just a couple of questions. You said this is going to be a 24-hour operation?
Yes. It will be 24 hours, but the actual dispensary hours are limited. Those are to be determined, but in general, 9 a.m. to 7 or 8 p.m., just depending upon what the, it's a new market, so depending upon what the patient demand is and when the busier times are. On the 24-hour part, it will be in operation 24 hours. There will be 24-hour security, so there will be somebody on site 24 hours a day.
And how many patients you figure you're going to be servicing?
That's tough, but getting the numbers from the state of Massachusetts, it could be around 10,000 patients.
Wow. And my last question is on the growing of the marijuana. How many plants you plan on growing? How long does it take to grow a plant? And is it going to be just one room, 2 rooms? How many plants would be involved with that?
Sure, Council. I'm going to defer that question. You don't know it? To Rick, head of cultivation.
I'll do this really quickly. The facility that they have right now, the Boston Wellness has, we expect to have 5 rooms of approximately 500 plants at a time. So it's 2,500 plants on site. It takes about 60 days for the cycle to be completed for those plants. And that's why Matt mentioned that it's 24/7. We have to have 3 to 4 people tending to the plants around the clock.
All right. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councilor Correggio. Councilor Hess.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is basically, I want to ask you, Matt, as far as the people that are in the agricultural aspect, that are growing the plants, will these people all have a Corey check?
Absolutely.
Everybody. Everyone will have it.
Everybody's Corey check. Everybody on premises has to have a security badge, and there's only limited access depending upon your security level. But everybody's background check and Corey check yearly.
Okay. The second question I have is, once you dispose of the plant, how is that done?
We're looking at, and Nick and Adam might be able to answer that a little bit better than me, but we're looking at a zero waste
on premises?
Operation.
On premises?
Everything on premise,
okay.
Yeah.
Okay, that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Hess. Councilor Novoselsky.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Welcome, everybody. Just have a couple of questions. I talked to you the other day, Councilor, about the 400-foot limit heading northbound to the Revere Beach Parkway. You're going to check on that distance for me.
As required, not just because you asked,
No.
I would do it for you. Okay? The site plan review committee is going to make us do a complete circumference 360. And we will check that.
Okay. And regarding lighting on the property, there is a straight line effect to this location from Hitchborn Street and the Revere Beach Parkway. And I just hope there's some deflectors put on some of those building lights. So, because, sometimes lights at night seem to get into people's homes. And even though it's 400 feet away, you still see that little dot shining into your house. So I just want to make sure.
Yeah, I'd say that's absolutely a valid concern, certainly something we would be doing.
Thank you. And one other question is, on the first gate, when the public goes in, when your customer goes in, how do they get into that gate if it's closed, or is it open during the day?
The first gate would be open during the business hours of the retail operation.
Okay.
The second gate would be always closed.
Always closed.
Have a security
Okay.
check.
And the last issue I have is a California issue, believe it or not. It's come to my attention that the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, by vote, by referendum, approved the sale of marijuana. And the state allows it, the local city allows it, but the DEA does not allow it. How do we handle something like that?
The regulations and the state law, first of all, it's medical marijuana, not marijuana. Okay, we don't want thousands of citizens out there going into cardiac arrest. Okay. Second of all, there are limitations in the state law. Right now, the limitations are such that they clearly say, if you read the state law, as I'm sure my brother has, the chairman, they talk about limitations as to certain accommodations made to people, using medical marijuana while driving aircraft and so forth, as well as no free buy when it comes to federal regulations in the DEA. So how they deal with it on a day-to-day basis and what they have to do for the DEA, I'm going to let Mr. Berman take that ball.
I'll preface this with I'm not a lawyer. But the Attorney General of the United States came out with a memo a few weeks ago. The memo was in reference to the 2 states that have now legalized recreational marijuana use for adults. Those states are Colorado and the state of Washington. Keep in mind that out of the states that have access to marijuana, there are 2 now that have recreational, and the rest are only accessible for medical use. That put the Department of Justice, and you said DEA, but it's starts at the Department of Justice. It put them in a very tight spot because there were 2 states that came out and said, if you're an adult, you can come in and you can buy marijuana the same way that an adult can buy liquor. And obviously that's completely contrary to the fact that this is a Schedule I narcotic. The Attorney General came out and said that he was going to respect states' rights in that regard. So as long as the operators within that state were operating within the constraints that the state placed on them. So that memo is the most recent piece of information that we have to go off of, and I think that's why it's so important that we follow state law, and I think that if you look at what's going on across the country, if the feds were going to pick a fight, they would pick a fight with a state that has recreational use. The 35 licenses that will be granted in this state will all be medical use.
Thank you. I just didn't want to get into a situation where, Revere always gets a bad name, a bad rap, because we're from Revere, and it's been going on for 100 years. And I just want to make sure that we don't get DEA raids and, they went into Revere and raided us. So I just didn't want to go there. But thank you. Mr. Chairman, thank you very much.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilor Zambuto.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll be brief as I know that we're running into the second meeting here. I think most of you know that I was against bringing medical marijuana to the city, and I tried to have our zoning with 0, 0, 0 across the board, and I was certainly overruled by the legal department. And but the funny part about it, or I guess the good part about it, is when I was approached that Matt Feldman was going to be leading the charge on this organization, I couldn't think of a more qualified and more exemplary businessman that we've had in the city. He came here many years ago and
excuse me, Councilor Zamboto. We're just having questions.
I know. Okay. I'm just making a brief statement, and if you give me a little leeway, I'll finish it real quick. If you interrupt me, it takes longer. The bottom line is, he's the gentleman that. He's a gentleman that turns things around. We had a bad location, turned into an exemplary hotel that was a flop house, to be kind. This is the kind of gentleman we want, especially if it's something as sensitive as this. A quality, put together a quality team that I don't think anybody can question the credentials of this team. So I'm thrilled to be in support of this, and I know it'll be run in a first-rate manner. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilor Powers.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have several questions, concerns, and I'll lay them out there and you can answer them as you will. First of all, number one, I would feel more comfortable seeing a police officer on a detail in there, at least during certain hours that could be prone to problems. My other concern is the hours of sale. I certainly would want to see individuals coming in there at 9 or 10 o'clock at night purchasing this product without any normal, when I say normal police security, I'm talking about sworn officers of the city of Revere. And the thing that really sticks out is the amount of prescription, the amount of product that will be sold to an individual. Because we all know, we're not going to, you know, it's a fact that people prescribe drugs by doctors. They go from one doctor to another doctor. They get their prescription filled at a different location, and they go out in the street and they sell it. That's a known fact, and I'd like to know what precautions are in place that would prevent this type of thing from happening.
My client has already stated that the operation of the retail establishment will be from 8 a.m. to 7 p.m., allowing people who have to work to come and get prescriptions at night. As far as the detail, again, Mr. Philbin's already said that he's willing to negotiate and talk to the Chief Caffarelli, about what he wants, first of all, and if in fact he requests and advises a detail, then we will comply to the best of our ability, notwithstanding the fact that, as Mr. Galota said, we have in place a top-rate security outfit that has worked with the city of Revere. Finally, the last question, which deals with the amount of given, 60 days supply, if you will. The regulations establish that the physician has to diagnose the individual with a debilitating condition, and then there has to be a bona fide physician-patient relationship. If there is a bona fide physician-patient relationship, there has to be, at least the initial phase, an actual physical evaluation of the needs of the individual. The amount of marijuana is being suggested by regulation as 10 ounces, but it leaves open the ability for the physician, based on the medical record that he establishes, as to what is actually prescribed, whether it's something like an ointment, a salve, or some other marijuana-infused product, not just marijuana. As far as the prescription control, the regulations clearly establish that once the individual comes to, let's say, Boston Wellness Association, that individual, once he has his prescribed amount for his 60-day period, that there'll be a reporting almost simultaneously, I understand, in order to be enforceable, that individual has had his prescription filled and no other marijuana facility will be able to give a double dose or double amount. And that all is within the regulations, and all will be regulated by DEP along with our security team.
Well, I'm glad to hear that, because that's something that really stands out in my mind. And again, getting back to the security, we all know that at 4:30, 5 o'clock during certain hours of the year, it gets dark. And that's one time that I certainly would like to see a sworn police officer on the premises there to prevent anyone from coming in and, you know, mugging someone or there be altercations or anything like that. So those are my concerns, and I hope when you come before the council, you'll be able to convince me that they have been addressed. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Council Powers. Council Penta.
I'll be quick, Mr. Chairman. Council has actually asked one of my questions, but the question just Matt made a reference to, and I just want to get this straight. You said the only signage in the building would be Boston Wellness Medical. Is that correct?
Yes, it'd be a
So it wouldn't say marijuana on it?
nondescript sign.
Correct, okay. I want to get back to the security, because I don't have a problem having a detail there, but my problem is this: if you don't have your own security there, because I do know someone that owns a business in the city that looked for a detail officer, calls, get him, doesn't show up because they can't find someone to do it. So, I mean, sometimes there's so much detail out there. There may not be that possibility to get a detail officer. Someone has a function hall, I know, that told me he's actually looking and asked me if I knew anybody had a security company that they could hire. So I would be just careful of that and work that out. Not that I'm against the detail, but you want to make sure someone's there. You don't want to put that in, put that down and guarantee the police officer when you can't get one. So just be that in mind. I know the council.
I can assure this council that, former Sheriff Galois and the chief will adequately decide the appropriate measures for Mr. Philbin and his team to protect that facility.
I don't disagree with you on that. I know Guy Clotis personally. I've known him for years, and I can't be happy that that's who we picked for security advisor. So, I mean, that I feel very comfortable with. The only other question I have is he's knocking around 24/7, and I think somebody said it might have been Adam that the camera. No, Guy. I think Guy said this. You're going to have cameras inside on the workers also. Is that correct? Yes. So these workers will be on camera 24/7, so they can't pocket any stuff or other things. So, I mean, for theft from workers, because does it happen? I'm sure it does in every business there is. And you did say there would be cameras on them also, correct?
Council, point well taken. And I don't think anybody can come before the council and guarantee anything. After all, Alcatraz was inescapable and the Titanic wasn't supposed to sink. So I would never come before the committee and promise and guarantee something. But I can tell you, President Philbin and Boston Wellness is committed to making sure that there are absolutely no thefts that could take place. And that includes, and Matt was very kind when he said everybody hired will be Corey background. The truth of the matter is, if anybody has a criminal record, including for drug paraphernalia or a felon, they just simply won't be hired. What Mr. Philbin also failed to mention is everybody on the board has already been Corey checked. We take that very serious. In addition, the uniforms will be zipped up. There'll be no pockets in which people could steal or put an item in their pocket. There'll be a hairnet paraphernalia that they'd be required to wear. Also, there's 2 workers at all times. So there would be a checks and balances to take that into account. There'll be surveillance cameras. And also, as Adam had mentioned, there's a plant-to-sale technology, which is actually barcoded, and any of the marijuana will be locked, according, again, to CMRs, on the safe and vaults at night. So there are so many security perimeters that we've taken into account, from interior theft to making sure there's checks and balances with eyes, with security, and with the eye in the sky, as we call it.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Chairman.
Thank you, Councilor Penta. Councilor Patch.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The most questions that people have asked me is, where is Railroad Ave? I mean, and unfortunately, I'm a good person to answer that because I grew up in that area on Victoria Street, and we used to play over there. And if there's ever a perfect place for this operation, it's Railroad Ave. My question is, and for people old like me, the best way to describe Railroad Ave, everybody will probably, in my age bracket, remembers the mill store, which is no longer there. The question that yes, there is a question. This V here, which used to be all like trucking companies and Durant Paint, they're all gone, right? They're going to be all.
Well, Durant Paint is not part of the facility, and they will continue to operate as the Yannetti family has historically done for the many years that they've been in our community. But the current freight operators that are there now, and kind of a hodgepodge of freight operation, will be gone.
Yeah, thank you. And as far as Guy Lotus, Mr. Philbin, you do have an excellent team here you put together. And as far as security, I've known Guy too for many years, and he might not mention he was the ex-Worcester sheriff with his other titles. But security is a big issue, and I'm sure it's going to be handled well. And I think it's just a perfect place for. Unfortunately, you know, I mean, this. And at first, I'll tell you, I didn't vote for it, and we all as councilors were 100%. We try to keep it out, but on reading up on the subject, I believe there is it's necessary. It helps people, and there is some good to it. And and like I say, it's a perfect location. You know, keep it out of my ward. Thank you, Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you
Mr. Chairman,
so much.
Councilor Patch. Let me say this, Councilor Patch. One is, you know, the council, like every other body in this state, will recognize the vote of the people. And the people voted 63% for medical marijuana. The city of Revere was 8,700 to 6,400. So the people of the city of Revere wanted medical marijuana. This honorable council, in a unanimous vote, chose this location. A location to this date, this is our second public hearing, we have nobody complaining. You did an outstanding job in your selection. That's what this tells us. And we're happy to be here.
Thank you, councilors, and to the extent that you did so, thank you, councilors, for holding off on the ad hominems. I'll ask the public if anybody else has anything to say. I understand there's at least one person that would like to speak. And again, I am going to limit this to questions, okay? So you got a question, fine.
I want to give testimony, Mr. Chairman.
Well, I'm not interested in testimony. I'm interested in if you have any questions. If you have testimony, and you can come to the city council meeting on Monday night, and you can ask the council president to allow you to speak. If you have a question, please ask it.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to give my name and address, and the reason why I'm in favor of this proposal. I missed the public hearing because I thought it was next week. William Bell, 420 Revere Beach Boulevard. I'm a former chairman of the American Cancer Society Door to Door, and I'm also a cancer victim right now. This won't affect me because I'm over my hump. There was one issue that wasn't brought up tonight about the benefit of medical marijuana. When you're first afflicted, you take a lot of pain-killing pills for the cancer. I don't know about all the other diseases. Unfortunately, I know from personal experience, and I hope no one else has, but their relatives might have. When you take pain-killing pills, there's an adverse effect. There's another symptom that happens to you that's sometimes worse than the original pain, and that you get bound up and everything. I understand medical marijuana would relieve that. So I'd like to thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak in favor of this wholeheartedly. They've got a great team back there. And few of them are very local, which is very it's very positive. I want to wish you all a happy Thanksgiving and a healthy Thanksgiving. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, former Councilor Bell. If there's no one else in the public to speak, Councilor Simeone?
I was just asking him, will the committee be voting this evening, or are you going to pull this over for a continued?
Well, I was about to make my comments very briefly and address that issue, if you don't mind. I have, again, looked at the CMRs. I have some recommendations that I'll hold until Monday night. I'm going to put them down in writing, having to do with Section 110 DF and G, security issues, that kind of technical issues, but I will address them on Monday night. Now,
so Monday night in a follow-up subcommittee?
No, on Monday night we're having a vote, I believe. I would assume, and as I said, my predilection, which is not typical of this, but it's necessary because of the, we've kind of put this together quickly, is to have the any comments be reserved until the actual vote, and assuming the council president is willing to entertain them. At that point, I think I would suggest that any recommendations be discussed at that point so that we can put them and join them with the site plan reviews recommendations. I think they should be very pointed. Frankly, I don't believe this subcommittee has any authority to issue the letter that you need, and that's my concern. I don't think the subcommittee has the authority to do it, and I don't know if although we have most of the city council here right now, whether the city council actually vote on it, because we do not have a meeting call. So you've got an issue.
Let me speak to the issue of the letter. We're not here, getting the letter is something that we're not asking you to do until we absolutely need it. What we do need is a vote on the special permit, because that in itself is the answer that we need. So we need a vote on the special permit.
We cannot vote on that special permit tonight.
No, I'm not asking for it to be.
Okay. Monday night, I would expect, again, with all due consideration of the council president's agenda, because I don't make that agenda, I will be reporting to the full city council on Monday night that we have held a required subcommittee meeting, that because of the constraints of time, we did not make a recommendation, but that the councils present were advised to bring any individual recommendations to the table at that point for discussion and hopefully for a vote. So it's out of my hands after this, so I would suggest that you be here Monday.
I guess I'll be here.
I guess you will. If there aren't any further comments, I'm going to close this, and I apologize to Councilor Arrigo for the delay in his subcommittee meeting, which I believe will begin in just a couple of minutes. Thank you very much for attending. I believe this will come to a vote again on Monday night if anybody else has anything to say. Thank you.